You can see behind me a flooded U.S. Highway 61 where floodwaters have already overtaken a good portion of the roadway, prompting a road closure. Now, I've only been here about 30 minutes or so, and I myself have already seen some of these floodwaters start to overtake the road. Now, it's a good idea to keep this phrase from the National Weather Service in the back of your mind. Turn around, don't drown, because it only takes about 6 inches of rushing water to sweep you off your feet. And then it only takes about 12 inches of water to float most vehicles. So if you happen to stumble across any roadways, turn around, don't drown, because you never know how deep that water actually is and if a roadway is actually still underneath you. Now, I did talk to a few Alexandria residents, asking them just how they are preparing in case this event becomes any worse.
I mean, I live in a fifth wheel, but I got some good people around me, and I know if I have to get out, I can get out. I don't have to worry about that. But I am worried.
Now, with more rainfall expected later tonight and into the early morning hours tomorrow, these flood levels are only going to be increasing, keeping these roads closed for an extended amount of time. Reporting in Alexandria, Missouri, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. We got a big snow plow coming through right now. That is really a sight all across the tri-states, which is a good thing, but road conditions are still on the hazardous side. Now, I took some proper measurements over grassy areas. Here in Quincy, I've been seeing anywhere from about 5 to 6 inches, but right now I am standing in a huge snowdrift, and these are really building up all across the area. And I really just want to kind of take a moment and measure this here with you, and I'm getting about 14 inches with some of these snowdrifts. So if you find these along roadways, it is going to be extremely difficult to maneuver your car around them, so continue to drive safe all across the tri-states and stay home if you can. After the heavy rainfall that we saw on Sunday night, the concerns for river flooding continued, especially in the places like Clarksville, where several roads are still underwater.
I feel like I'm living on Gilligan's Island. It's a non-stop. It's water, water, water.
River levels have started to approach several homes in Clarksville, but Richard Cottrell says his historic Northeast Missouri home is no stranger to floods.
Well, I bought the house in 2006, and I think this is like number 8.
While many residents watched the floodwaters rise, some were caught off guard.
I didn't realize it's going to get it this high. I mean, in the fall, you're not expecting it to flood. You know, it's a spring thing. So I didn't know anything about it until all of a sudden they were putting the barriers up. I didn't know how high it was going to get.
Despite the unseasonable sinking roads, residents didn't let the floodwaters put a damper on their fall festivities this weekend.
Well, we had Apple Fest this weekend, and it affected it a lot. We still had a good turnout, but we're kind of an island. The only way to get in is Highway W from the south part of town. So it really does affect things. And when you have to go to work or go get groceries, you have to drive about 40 miles to get 9 miles.
While flooded roadways have caused a lot of headaches for a lot of folks across the tri-states for the past week or so, there is some good news. The Mississippi River levels are expected to start to drop later this week, and hopefully all those roadways will follow afterwards. Reporting in Clarksville, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. The winter solstice is right around the corner, marking the first official day of winter. But the signs of summer life might be behind us. Gail Rubley reminds us to slow down and take a minute to observe the life that is still abundant during the winter time.
So today we're actually looking at what happens to plants and animals in the wintertime.
A walk through Hannibal's Riverview Park showed more life than what winter leads us to believe.
Those eagles, they're majestic birds. Yes, things are very much alive, but they're in a dormant state.
We see all 4 seasons here in the tri-states, and all it took was a winter hike to find the treasures.
There's just all sorts of things that goes on in this part of the country.
Oh, it's going up and down.
We really are in a unique ecosystem. Right here in Missouri, we're the meeting place of east and west and north and south, and it's wonderful here.
Visitors had the opportunity to enjoy the sunny day and learned about the world around us.
And these leaves, they're decomposing.
We got out, we had fun, we had a bit of a family walk, and they learned a little bit about science and about nature.
Winter is a magical season because all different plants, like in spring, different plants grow than in winter, and it's so neat to me that nature is different.
In Hannibal,
I just think all of the nature and the way it works together to survive the winter is really an amazing thing that we get to have here.
Meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. Ice and snow in the southeast, sub-freezing temperatures, and a snowy fall here in the tri-states. This could be a sign that a solar minimum is impacting our weather. Tuesday's view of the sun shows a smooth, blemish-free surface, far different than the surface you would see during a solar maximum.
We're either in the minimum or we're pretty darn close to it, because this year we went 100 days without a single sunspot, and that's rare.
Astronomy author Bob Berman says that a solar minimum happens around every 11 years or so, but that doesn't mean that every 11 years we'll see colder temperatures.
It's complicated, so you don't always get an exact correlation. Some researchers that say that has effects through intermediates. It affects the upper clouds, and that affects the oceans, and the oceans affect the air. You know how it goes. There's a lot of steps in between.
If this colder winter correlation is true, it could be happening at the perfect time.
Some researchers think we are entering, perhaps, an extended period of solar quiet or inactivity. And if we are, then that could really cause a cool down on Earth. And maybe that's the best thing that could possibly happen. Maybe the sun is coming to our rescue with climate change or global warming just when it's the best possible time it could be doing that. Maybe it's buying us some time.
In Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. Well, we all felt that cool, crisp air move into the tri-states this week, but that leaves us asking the question of what does this winter look like? Well, it might surprise you in some of the ways that we forecast it right here in the tri-states. You've probably seen them inching across the roads the past couple of weeks, but could their colors determine winter temperatures? The Farmer's Almanac suggests the woolly worm's brown stripe can indicate winter conditions. The thinner the stripe, the colder the winter. Well, the woolly worms I've seen across town don't even have stripes on them. Does that mean we're in for an even harsher winter? Well, let's look at one more method. The Farmer's Almanac predicts a warm, wet winter here in the tri-states, but that's only if you believe in its top secret formula. So, what's the final way? The National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center expects most of the country to see above average temperatures, with average moisture expected for our area. So whether you like the National Weather Service's prediction of what the winter might look like, or even the good old Farmer's Almanac, or even the woolly worms forecast, your guess is as good as anybody's. In Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News.
It's a lot to keep watered and keep on top of things.
That's what many of us here across the tri-states might be saying as the summer heat fries our potted plants, trees, and lawns. However, as drought conditions continue, we need to think more about the plant's roots rather than the leaves.
So when you get into periods of drought, the deeper roots will sustain a longer period of dryness versus a shallow root system. So it's better to water longer and less frequent than short waterings multiple times during the day.
You also might want to avoid watering during the hottest parts of the day, and watering at night could do more harm than good.
Watering late at night, that grass holds the moisture and then goes into the evening hours with the humidity, and it stays wet a longer period of time and allows fungus to grow. So it's better to water early in the morning.
Yeah, and one of the best ways to protect maybe even your potted plants, if you plan on going to vacation, maybe ask a neighbor, hey, can you come over? Can you water my potted plants? That way they don't die in this extreme heat. But if you can't find anybody, a very cheap and inexpensive way is just take a wine bottle, maybe a beer bottle, rinse it out thoroughly, and then you're just going to want to fill it up with water, take it and really just kind of shove it down into the soil, deep down into it. It should hold firm there, and the soil will actually act as a sponge and slowly absorb the water, releasing it when your plant actually needs it the most. Reporting live in Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. December 1st welcomed in a long line of long-lived severe thunderstorm warnings that produced several tornado warnings in western parts of Illinois, leaving behind a path of destruction, just like this. Now, the National Weather Service was out this weekend to determine the strength of this tornado.
So right now we're looking at what we think could be the path of this tornado. So what we try and do is, after we get any sort of reports of tornadoes or really any significant damage from thunderstorms, we try to go out and take a look and see exactly what happened.
Although the path of destruction may be narrow, the impacts are still felt.
We've seen hardwood trees that have been snapped at the trunk. We've seen some manufactured homes that have had the roof completely torn off had some walls come off, things like that, and then some farm and outbuildings that have actually been rolled over.
As for the strength of Saturday's tornado,
everything that we've seen so far today has been consistent with EF1 damage, and so that's generally anywhere between about 95 and 110 miles an hour.
While cleanup efforts are underway in Pike County, there's a lot to be said about a tri-state tornado in December.
It's certainly uncommon to have it in December, but it's not unprecedented. Especially in this part of the country, we can get low pressure systems, things like that, bring up a lot of that warm air, stuff that we saw yesterday, and just make the ingredients just right.
Winter weather conditions return to the tri-states this week, but this spring-like storm will be remembered for the residents of Pike County as the cleanup process begins. In Pike County, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. We are no stranger to the snow and ice that has built up on our cars here across the tri-states from this week's blizzard and sub-freezing temperatures. But there are a few tips and tricks that could help melt some of this ice and snow just a little bit faster. Clearing frozen windshields has to be one of the most time-consuming tasks during the winter months. We know starting our car and turning the defroster on will help speed up the process, but spraying a thin layer of 3 parts vinegar and 1 part water onto our windshield will help the melting process. Our mirrors are typically too difficult to scrape. Placing a bag over them before the sun goes down will prevent ice buildup. Windshield wipers stuck? While your car sits idle, place an old pair of dress socks over them to prevent them from freezing. Just keep in mind that this only works with dry, cold conditions. While it might be tempting to go ahead and start your car and then go back inside and wait for it to warm up, that is illegal to do in the state of Illinois and Missouri, but not in Iowa. In Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. Winter weather is here, and it is here to stay through the week.
Well, I'm off for the next 2 days, so I'm going to bundle up inside.
While there's not much that we can do to change the weather forecast, there are ways that you can get involved in this ever-changing weather pattern. And before those snowflakes start to fall, you too can be a part of the KHQA Elite Weather team, and all you have to have is a measuring device. There are several surfaces that work best for measuring snowfall. They include wood surfaces such as picnic tables, decks, or even shortly cut grass. The location of these surfaces is also important to getting an accurate measurement. Avoid locations under trees or eaves of buildings. Areas that typically produce snowdrifts should be avoided when taking your measurements. Now, the best time to take your snow measurements is immediately after the snow has stopped falling. Now, you're going to want to record this number to the nearest 1/10 of an inch. And after you do so, be sure to send over that measurement to us here at KHQA on any of our social media platforms. Reporting in Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. That's right, Raja and David. Since the moment I got here back in May, everybody across town was telling me how spectacular Main Street was during the fall season, and I didn't believe it until I saw it earlier today, and just stunning views. If you haven't made your way down the Main Street in Quincy, I highly suggest you do before all of these leaves fall. And speaking of each leaf, each one has a chemical difference in it that we have the latest breakdown on. Let's start with the basic leaf in the summer. There are 3 main chemicals found inside. The first 2 are carotenes and xanthophylls. Those are orange and yellow. But you may be more familiar with the third chemical, chlorophyll, which is responsible for the leaves' green color, masking the orange and yellow. As summer temperatures slip away, so does the chlorophyll's pigment and the life of the leaf. But it's not the temperature that initiates this change, it's the intensity and amount of sunlight signaling the end of the season. As the northern hemisphere continues to tilt away from the sun, our days get shorter and nights become longer, stopping the production of chlorophyll, and with it, the leaves' green pigmentation.
This is a good time of year for the maples, the hard maples and the sunset maples, and a lot of the tulip trees are all in their best foliage color for this season.
Now, the number of shades of red, yellow, and orange seen on different varieties of trees all depends on the amount of carotenes and xanthophylls in the leaf when it dies. While the leaf goes through this change, the tree develops a layer of cells that severs the leaf from the tree, protecting the stem from winter conditions. And once that leaf actually breaks away from the tree limb, it quickly loses its fall color, just turning brown. And then unfortunately, you at home have to rake your front lawns afterwards. But reporting live in Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. But I do want to toss things back over to Chief Meteorologist Rich Kane, where I know that there is a big weather pattern change. One of the coldest temperatures that we've seen so far this season expected by the end of the week. It might be a good idea to maybe put some of your outdoor potted plants inside during the overnight hours. The winds of change are moving into the tri-states, and that could hurt your garden sooner than you like.
Annuals are going to start to fade out as they go now from here on out.
But there's still time to save your plants before the temperatures drop.
You've got a larger plant that's a specimen plant, and you want to keep that plant, and you're planning on bringing it in the wintertime. This week's probably the week to start bringing that back in.
As for your produce,
picking anything that's ripe out of the garden. Once your fruit and your vegetables are out and you're done, cleaning up all the spent vegetative top growth, cleaning those up, tilling the garden is a good thing.
Unfortunately, we can't take in all of the plants that we worked so hard on during the summer months to keep alive, but there is something that you could possibly do to maybe prolong them. All you want to do is grab an old sheet or an old cover, drape it over the plants just like I'm doing here with these daylilies, and then you also want to make sure that you have some bricks at hand as well. So by placing them on either side, if conditions become gusty in the overnight hours, it will keep that blanket or cover grounded and hopefully keep your plants safe as well. Reporting in Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. We're no strangers to severe weather here in the tri-states, but what is the difference between a watch and a warning?
Tornado watch there's a tornado somewhere in the area coming toward you. Tornado warning would be that it's much closer, get to safety.
That's close, but not exact.
A watch means you can stand out on your porch and watch for it because it may or may not be out there. A warning means you need to take cover because it's coming.
Julie's spot on there. But when do we typically hear tornado sirens go off?
A confirmed sighting from a spotter, and we have spotters that go out, a law enforcement officer, or a warning from St. Louis National Weather. Instantly, when we get any one of those three, the sirens would be sounded.
And you might see tornado sirens all across the tri-states, just like this one behind me here, but they will not go off unless you are in immediate danger or are under a warning.
The downside to it is that causes a lot of people want to go and look out the window or take their cell phones and get outside and start taking pictures.
If a warning does go off in your area, it's important to take the steps necessary to stay safe.
You get the warning and you do nothing about it, nobody can do a thing about that if you're not going to heed that warning.
Reporting in Hannibal, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News.
Snow, 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 snow!
I hope to see not a lot of snow. I was kind of hoping we might have a little bit of moisture because it was very dry last winter for us.
Their guess is as good as anyone's. However, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is predicting a 70% chance for a winter with a weak El Nino setup in the Pacific Ocean. But what does that mean for us?
I don't know what El Nino means.
That's okay, Shaylee. You're not the only one. El Nino is basically warmer sea surface temperatures over the Pacific Ocean that directly impacts our winter weather in the U.S., including us here in the tri-states.
We've had these dry conditions over the past couple of months here in the tri-states, and with a weak El Nino on the horizon, it really doesn't show good conditions heading into the winter.
Typically during an El Nino year, parts of the south and southeast see a cooler, wetter winter, while those in the north, including us here in the tri-states, typically see a warmer, drier winter.
We don't want to see a drier, warmer winter. That's just going to put us further into a drought.
Well, Marcus, the National Weather Service issued a tornado watch west of the Mississippi River around 2:16 this afternoon, and the first tornado warning came out nearly 30 minutes later.
Okay.
Now, I want to show you some video here. The first tornado warning of the day took place around Pleasant Hill, Illinois. Chris Grimley and Troy Mooney spotted the beginnings of the rotation as a wall cloud started to form with an extending funnel cloud. And our very own Chris Dewar spotted this view near Griggsville as a visible funnel cloud clouds started to extend down from the rotating mesocyclone. I'm in America's hometown where I'm in the back of a plow truck. Now, they've been working very diligently as this blizzard has finally made its way out of the tri-states, but there's a lot more that goes into just shoveling the streets. There's a lot of planning involved.
We needed a little bit of sunshine.
The Missouri Department of Transportation has been working night and day to keep streets clear of snow and ice, but this storm is slightly different.
The wind factor is adding tough conditions out here on snow plowing.
And adding additional time to remove snow.
What I do usually is I'm just looking for areas that are built up, which is like deeper snow and stuff like that. I'm putting my plow down, trying to get that off the road. As I do that, I'm putting material down behind me at the thinnest. So I'm trying to get it as thin as I possibly can, and then I'm putting the cinders and the salt and the salt brine down on it after that.
That process takes time, but other vehicles need to be cautious around snow plows.
If you're traveling too close and we have to stop in an emergency situation, it can make a situation a lot worse. I mean, even though we got a heavy snow plow, we got a good load on everything. I mean, it's just as slick for us sometimes as it is for other people.
And MoDOT suggests if you don't have to be out on the roadways during winter weather conditions, it's better to just stay at home. Reporting in Hannibal, Missouri, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. I'm here outside the American Red Cross here in Quincy, and it's just one of many organizations across the tri-states that's helping keep you prepared during the month of September.
National Preparedness Month is a month that national partners like FEMA, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and all the other organizations like the Health Department as well like to get together and basically make a push to raise public awareness about why we need to be prepared before a disaster happens.
Most people in the tri-states feel like we live in a safe area. That can give us a false hope.
Even if you live in a safe area, that usually just means that when a big incident happens, while you might not be unprepared, you are less used to it.
When putting together a preparedness kit, you don't want to leave these key items out.
Some of the most important things to think about in preparedness are your emergency contact lists, your important paper and documents, having sustainable food, like canned food or bottled water preferably. And then most importantly, educating your family on this. It needs to start from the child up, so that they're aware of this, so we're not just preparing ourselves, but building a preparedness culture, as we like to call it in the emergency service world.
While last week's rainfall wasn't as heavy or significant as we had once thought, it comes as a good reminder to us here across the tri-states that we need to be prepared before an event happens. Reporting in Quincy, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News. It's kind of a scary thought to think of your child in school during the event of a tornado warning, but I assure you it's the school's #1 priority to keep your child safe.
I think first and foremost, when parents drop their students off at school, they want their children to be safe.
In the case of a tornado warning, Palmyra Elementary School is well prepared with having their students seek shelters.
We have multiple areas scattered throughout the building, and so depending upon where the students are in the building, all of those designated areas are marked clearly with signage, and so teachers are familiar with those locations.
While it might be tempting to take your child out of school during a warning, the safest place they can be is at school.
We would encourage that we're able to place them in tornado safe areas and to keep them safe within our building. If parents were to come to school, that creates confusion on should we let the child go or obviously leave the child here, and ultimately we might be keeping a parent here with us as well. We take drills and procedures very seriously. We schedule those within our calendar year, and we practice those so that kids are familiar with them. Our teachers are well informed and prepared, I feel like, as best they can be, and if a need were to arise where we would have to follow that protocol, we would be able to do that.
If a tornado warning does so happen to fall over your child's school, they'll be advised to head to their closest tornado-safe shelter. Get down as low as they possibly can to the ground, bend over and protect the back of their head. Reporting in Palmyra, meteorologist Josh Cozart, KHQA News.
Your exclusive KHQA Elite Weather Team forecast.
Well, you could be looking at a out-of-focus view of my Christmas lights at my place, but it's not. It's actually South 36th Street covered in fog with our Sleep Tight camera atop our studios right here in the Gem City. And our current temperature starting to slide back slightly. 34 degrees is our current temperature. That humidity still on the high side thanks to all of that fog at 96% and a north wind kind of on the gustier side at about 17 miles per hour. Out towards Macomb, oh boy, what a spooky kind of eerie side out there tonight. Almost looks more like Halloween than the Christmas season. You are at the freezing mark at 32 degrees, 100% humidity and a north wind at about 14 miles per hour. As for the rest of the tri-states, really we're seeing temperatures into the middle 30s for a lot of us here. Keokuk at 32, Hannibal at 34, Monroe City at that 34 degree mark, and Mount Sterling at 35 degrees. As for our winds, mainly out of the north, all due to a low pressure system centered down to our south, but gustier conditions along the Mississippi River Valley as really wind speeds are anywhere from about 10 to 20 miles per hour. When you add in that wind, it makes those temperatures feel even colder. Temperatures now dipping back with our wind chills feeling closer to the lower 20s for a good portion of us here in the tri-states. There's that low pressure system bringing that north wind in. It's tracking its way further off towards the east, but will remain to the south. We are expected to see dry conditions tonight. However, that fog and the light cloud coverage will continue to stick around. Now that cutoff low, it's going to continue to track its way further off to the east. High pressure moves in behind us, giving us plenty of sunshine here in the Central Plains and a good portion of the tri-states, along with some warmer temperatures as well, as that high pressure really kind of slows down, stalls out over our area here for the next couple of days. Sunny conditions are in our forecast, and we kind of give you a little bit better of a breakdown here with our home bank forecast in motion. There's those clouds tonight. They start to push their way further off towards the south and east, giving us some clearing conditions. However, I think some of the fog might stick around and won't clear out until around 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. Sunny conditions expected for us into our Saturday afternoon and evening hours. That is going to allow for our temperatures to warm up slightly with the sunshine. Into our Sunday morning, just a few fair weather clouds start to make their way into our area. Mostly sunny conditions are on tap for our Sunday afternoon and into our Sunday evening. For tonight, fog remains, 30 degrees for our low, north winds at about 10 miles per hour. Tomorrow, we warm up quite nicely, 48 degrees, plenty of sunshine, and again, that north wind right around 10 miles or so. There's the sunshine. It's in abundance here. Temperatures slightly on the warmer side for us. It's going to feel like summertime come Wednesday, and the first official day of winter is this upcoming Friday. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.